my students, today we are going to study chapter 2 of our novel for this term, which is A Tale of Two Cities. First of all, we have to deal with the main points of the chapter. Number 1, in this chapter, the writer introduces the life in Paris. People there lived in hunger and poverty. Number 2, Saint Antonio was a poor section of Paris. It was filled with poverty and hunger. A large wine cask dropped out of a cart. All people stopped what they were doing and ran over there and drank from the wine. One of the men, who was called Gasper, a tall man, ran quickly to one of the walls and wrote the word blood in capital letters. It refers to that the blood of the nobles that would strain in the streets. Okay? Number 5, Mr. Devarge, the owner of the wine shop, and Madame Devarge was his wife. She had a strong character. She was knitting all the time. She hated the noblemen they everyone has called the deaths of her brother, sister, and father. She wanted to take revenge upon all these noblemen. Number 6, Lucy Manning and Mr. Lurie arrived at the wine shop. They went to Dr. Mannett's room. They found the door locked up. Mr. Devarge held to her hand to comfort her. They saw 3 men looking through some cracks in the wall. Devarge said that he only showed him to them in order to choose some jacks. Okay? Number 6, they entered the room to find a white-haired man sitting on a low bench. He was bending over a pair of shoes that he was making. Devarge walked toward the window to find Dr. Manette working hard in his shoes. Mr. Lurie tried to remind Dr. Manette of him, but in vain. He didn't remember Mr. Charles Lurie or his daughter Lucy Manette. Okay? Lucy asked Mr. Lurie if her father was fit enough for the journey, and so they decided to come back to England. During the journey back to London, they met Charles Darwin, who was a handsome gentleman. Okay? Number 12, Charles had been accused of treason as he had been seen traveling many times between Paris and England. Number 15, Sidney Carton, the lawyer, played an important role in the court. We will know that Sidney Carton was Mr. Stravan's assistant. At the Old Bailey Court, a trial for treason was held. Number 15, Lucy Manette and her father attended the trial as being witnesses, as they met Charles before during their journey back to England. Number 16, Mr. John Parsons, a former friend of Charles, he said that he had discovered that Darwin was a traitor. Number 17, Robert Clay was also a witness against Darwin. Number 18, Mr. Stravan summed up his case for the defense. Number 19, the jury left the room saying that Charles was not guilty. Okay? Now, my dear friends, we are going to discuss the questions related to chapter 2. Okay? First of all, how was the character of Madame Devarge? She was a strongly built woman with a fixed look in her face. She had the air of someone who knows exactly what she wants and how to get it. Number 10, command you lock the door. These words were said by Mr. Lurie to Devarge when they were going up to the room where Dr. Manette was. Number 11, how was Dr. Manette after his long imprisonment? His hair was white, his face was weak, and his skin was yellow like old paper. He was making shoes. Number 12, comment 105 North Tower. These words were said by Dr. Manette when he was asked about his name. That was the number of his cell at prison. As we said before, he couldn't remember anything. Number 15, how did Dr. Manette recognize his daughter? He recognized her from her golden her mothers. Okay? Number 14 comment. Oh sir, another time I shall tell you my name and who my mother was. These words were said by Miss Manette to her father. When he asked her about her name, she told him that his pain is over and that she had come back to take him back to England. As we said before, she would restore him back to life. Number 1, comment. I think it's better for him to make the journey than to remain in this city. These words were said by Miss Manette to Mr. Lurie when he asked if Dr. Manette was well enough for the journey back to England. How did they prepare for the doctor's journey back to London? Mr. Lurie and George made the necessary arrangements for the journey while Dr. Manette slept. Madame George brought the shoemaking tool for the coach. How did the stranger help Dr. Manette on board of the boat? With Mr. Lurie's help, he gently moved Dr. Manette to a place which was driest and most sheltered on the deck. How did the stranger, Charles Darwin, look like? He was a young, fine-looking gentleman with dark eyes and face that had been in the sun. How could Lucy help her father, Dr. Manette, to recover? With her love and gentleness, he at last remembered who he was. Once more, the shoemaking tool stood untouched in his room. Why were Mr. Lurie, Dr. Manette, and Lucy called to be witnesses at the trial of Charles Darwin? Because they had seen Charles Darwin travel from France to England with them on the same boat. How were Lucy's feelings whilst taking part in the trial of Charles Darwin? She was very alarmed and trembled with fear that everyone in the court turned to look at the lady with golden hair and her old father. What was Charles Darwin accused of? He was accused of giving information to the French government about the movements of the English army and of being an enemy of the nation. Number 9, comment. I hope that I will not repay his kindness today by doing him any harm. These words were said by Lucy to the lawyer when he asked her if she had seen Darwin during her journey on the boat. Number 10, how could Mr. Stravan invalidate Mr. Parsons and the other servants' accusations against Charles Darwin? He proved that Parsons had been sent to prison several times for failing to pay people money that he owed them. Darwin's servants too had previously been accused of stealing from his employer. Show that Sidney Carton had adequate powers of observation. He was the first one to note the similarity between himself and Darwin and drew Mr. Stravan's attention to that. He also was the first one to note that Lucy was going to faint. Comment, you have always been the same. You have a clever head on your shoulders, but you are never determined enough to succeed. These words were said by Mr. Stravan to Carton after the trial of Darwin. Carton seemed to be careless and reckless, though he had powers of observation and understanding. Okay, thank you, my dear